When you were in college, there was a male student named Chase. Leo Lu recalled for a moment before he remembered, right? I do remember there was a classmate named Chase. What about him? Is he now in the United States? Yeah, I heard so. How is his relationship with Jasmine gone? Chase. Leo Lu, puzzled, answered. He was a very introverted person, rarely talked to others. He and Jasmine gone. Probably weren't very close. Why do you suspect him? Greg Wong did not want to reveal the case details to him and said, I can't tell you other details, but I want to ask, could Chase have possibly been Jasmine Gan's boyfriend? Regarding this, Leo Lu was very certain in his response, impossible. Jasmine Gan was a beauty and also in our engineering department. If you look at Chase Chin's photo, Jasmine Gan would not have been his girlfriend. Recalling Chase Chin's appearance, Greg Wong thought it indeed would be hard for him to find a girlfriend. He continued to ask, when did Chase Chin go abroad? He went right after graduating from college. I heard he got a scholarship to that. What's it called? School in the United States. Have you seen him since then? No, we have class reunions every 2 or 3 years, but he never came. I heard he's always been abroad, his whole family immigrated. Among your classmates, does anyone keep in touch with him? Let me think. It seems he rarely speaks in the class group chat. Seems like no one is in touch with him. Do you know what job he has in the United States? I remember asking once. He's roughly a technical manager at a chemical plant, working on the development of chemical products. Has anyone seen his photos in recent years? No. Okay, can you access the internet now? I can. I'll show you a photo later, and you help me confirm if it's Chase Chin. Soon, Greg Wong sent the photo to Leo Lu, who replied that the face shape was somewhat similar, but he couldn't be completely sure. Greg Wong thanked him and also asked him to keep the conversation confidential, not to mention today's questions to anyone. After hanging up the phone, Greg Wong was more convinced that the person in the Mercedes was Chase Chin, and he had a clearer understanding of Chase Chin's overall profile. Chase Chin was a short, skinny student with dark skin, unattractive appearance, introverted personality, and silent, not very communicative. After graduation, he got a scholarship to a school in the United States and went abroad to study. Since then, his whole family immigrated abroad, and he has been working in the United States without returning. And he has always been engaged in the R&D work of the chemical industry, fully capable of synthesizing the poison used in crimes. The only doubt was that he couldn't possibly be Jasmine Gan's boyfriend. At most, he had deeply loved Jasmine Gan in secret. But after so many years, to return to the country to kill for a secretly loved person? This doesn't quite make sense. He must be an accomplice, assisting the person who really wanted to avenge Jasmine Gan in committing the crime. And the real culprit seeking revenge for Jasmine Gan, Xander Su, was indeed very likely. Anyway, first, call Xander Su to the station to probe his intentions. Also, immediately contact the Civil Aviation Administration to check if Chase Chin had returned to the country a few months ago. Once it's confirmed he did return, then the man in the photo is Chase Chin, which would be 100% confirmed. On January 4th, the first day back to work after New Year's Day, Xander Su received a call from Jack Lind. Director Wong invited him to the police station for a chat. Hanging up the phone, Xander Su felt uneasy. A very bad mood surfaced. The case had been dormant for so long, and now suddenly being called to the police station, could it be that they had locked onto Chase Chin? Or even captured Chase Chin, and dragged himself into it as well? But after some thought, it couldn't be that they had already caught Chase Chin. Otherwise, such big news would have spread within the judiciary long ago. The last time Greg Wong had asked him about Jasmine Gan's social relations, he had said everything he knew. Being called again, there was only one possibility. Chase Chin was already under their suspicion. How to respond? He remembered Chase Chin's words, the book Chase Chin had shown him, and the box of cigars. After much deliberation, Chase Chin wouldn't betray him. At this point, whether or not Chase Chin would be caught, he had to clench his teeth and deny everything. Otherwise, for such a big case, if Chase Chin was destined to be caught, it would mean the death penalty, and his own life would definitely be ruined. He must keep a tight lid on everything, go over all the details again, and not let the police catch any contradictory statements. Having made up his mind, Xander Su wiped his palms on his trousers and headed to the county bureau. Upon arrival at the police station, Xander Su was taken to a small conference room, where only Greg Wong was sitting. He asked Jack Lin to leave, closed the door, sat down, and after some polite small talk, said, "Xander, I didn't call you here for anything big today, Just wanted to ask about your childhood friend Chastion. Chastion? What about him? Xander Su seemed a bit anxious. Greg Wong coughed and took out a high-speed photo from the file bag on the table. Take a look. Is this Chastion? Xander Su picked it up and immediately recognized that. Of course, it was Chastion. His heart skipped a beat. Chastion was not just under police suspicion, but had been locked on by them. He suppressed the panic in his heart, knowing that just inches away, a pair of sharp eyes of an experienced detective were staring at him. He brought out all his emotion control skills honed over years in the bureaucracy, not daring to relax any detail of his body, not letting any subconscious movements betray him. Quickly thinking it over, he steadied his hands and returned the photo to Greg Wong, saying, "It looks quite like him, but I haven't seen him for 10 years. I can't be completely sure." "Have you seen his photos in recent years?" Greg Wong continued to stare into his eyes. Xander Su truthfully answered, "I've seen 1 or 2 photos a few years ago. He rarely takes photos." "Was he very thin during his student days, and has Chastion gotten that fat now?" "Maybe. He has put on some weight." Xander Su controlled himself, not allowing his brain to pause for a moment, trying to keep his gaze calm against the pressing eyes in front of him, and asked, "Director Wong, where did you get this photo from? Why are you asking about him?" Greg Wong knew well, if Xander Su was another perpetrator, hiding the fact that they had locked on to Chastion was useless. It might be better to tell him to get more information out of him. So he said, "The person in this car is the criminal we and the police have been desperately searching for. As for whether or not he is Chastion, we can't make a 100% conclusion now." Xander Su feigned surprise. "Him? Chastion? Impossible. He has been in the United States for 10 years. Greg Wong sneered. "We have already gone to the Civil Aviation Administration to pull the entry and exit information. The results will be out soon." Xander Su felt a wave of turmoil inside. As long as it was found that Chastion had returned to the country not long after Jasmine Gan's death, then the evidence would be irrefutable. Seeing Xander Su's somewhat pale face, Greg Wong said, "What's wrong? You don't seem to be in a good mood?" I didn't expect. This is impossible. How could he do such a thing?" Xander Su had to explain his complexion this way. Greg Wong said, "We don't care why he did it. We only care who did it." "Xander, when was the last time you contacted Chastion?" Xander Su was clear about the police's investigative methods. If he answered a few years ago, the police only needed to check his internet chat records and phone call records, and they would immediately drag him into it. He pretended to recall for a moment and said, about 3 months ago." 3 months ago? Wasn't that around the time when the He family had their incident? Xander Su awkwardly said, "Yes, that's right." "How did you contact each other at that time? Online? Or by phone?" "By phone." "Was it because of the He family's incident that you contacted each other? What did you talk about on the phone?" "At that time, it seemed to be right after He Jian's incident, he called me, asking about the He family situation." "Why did he ask you about the He family situation?" "He said he saw on the internet that other classmates were talking about Jasmine Gan's family having an incident, and since I'm from Jean County, he called to ask about the situation." "Why is he so concerned about the He family's affairs? What is his relationship with Jasmine Gan?" Xander Su shook his head. "I've never heard him mention any relationship with Jasmine Gan. I think his call was out of concern among classmates." "What did you say at the time?" "I told him that He Jianqing had died, and the rumor was that he was beaten to death by the police station's people, but I wasn't very clear about the specifics. I said I would tell him once things were clearer after a few days." "What did he say?" "He didn't say much, just that he wanted to be informed immediately once there were any results." "Didn't you find it strange that he was so concerned about the He family's affairs?" Xander Su shook his head. "Not strange. After all, it's a big deal for an old classmate's family, and it's normal to be concerned. If it were my classmate, I would be very concerned too." "Did you not contact each other after that?" Xander Su thought for a moment and said, "I remember now, not long after, on the day Jasmine Gan died, I called him." "Why did you call him?" "Because during our previous call, he asked me to inform him immediately if there was any new information." "What was his reaction?" "Nothing special, just seemed a bit angry. But it was a phone call, and it's been so long, it's hard for me to describe clearly." "Since then, you haven't contacted each other?" "Right, that's correct." "Including online chats?" Xander Su thought for a moment and said, "I don't chat online much, and I rarely see him online, so we probably haven't contacted each other again." "When you spoke to him on the phone, did you find anything unusual about his tone or words?" "Not really. I would have remembered if there was." Chase hasn't returned to the country for 10 years, right? Yes. He went to the United States for studies after college graduation, and during his studies, his whole family immigrated to Australia. He has a younger brother who also lives in Australia with their parents now. What do his parents do? His father is a university lecturer, and his mother is an engineer. How often have you been in contact with him over these 10 years? Very rarely. Our time zones are completely opposite, so we seldom contact each other. How well do you know him? What aspect are you referring to, Director Wong? Like his personality, habits. He's a very introverted person. When we were studying, he talked quite a lot with me but very little with others. But starting from college, he even spoke less to me, almost not interacting with outsiders. Greg Wong nodded and said, "So, you mean he's a bit of an odd character?" Yes, that could be said in the past. It's been 10 years now, and I'm not very clear about his current situation. He is now the head of chemical research at a company in the United States, needing to communicate with many people. I think his personality shouldn't be too introverted now. Besides you, does he have any other close contacts in China? Xander Su thought for a while and shook his head. It seems not. I've never heard him mention other friends. All right, then what about his life preferences? Where does he like to go? I'm not sure about that. Greg Wong's fox-like eyes finally moved away from Xander Su's face, and he smiled, saying, "Xander, that's all I needed to know for today. Thank you for your cooperation. You're aware of our investigation progress. You should know, the murderer in this case won't escape punishment." He emphasized the word punishment significantly, glanced at Xander Su, and continued, "So, all the information today, you need to keep it confidential for us. We're all part of the legal system. I don't need to say more." "Sure, definitely. But it's still hard for me to accept at the moment. I really hope it was someone else who looks like him." After leaving the county bureau, Xander Su slowly recovered from the nervousness and fear. Today's meeting was not just about understanding the situation, it was an interrogation, especially Greg Wong's gaze and tone, which were vivid in Xander Su's memory and still made him shiver. He took out his keys to drive, finding his hands shaking badly. He had been trying hard to control his facial expressions and various small movements just now. Once his nerves relaxed, he could no longer control them. He dared not stay at the county bureau, hurriedly drove back to the prosecutor's office, and immediately ran into the bathroom upon entering, unable to help vomiting. Inside the Public Security Bureau, Greg Wong returned to his office, where George Zhu and Jack Lin were waiting for him. Jack Lin said, "Boss, is Xander Su an accomplice?" George Zhu said, "Would we let him go if he were an accomplice?" Greg Wong shook his head and said, "I can't tell yet. This guy was very calm. It's possible he really didn't know anything, or he might be another murderer. He has been in the prosecutor's office for many years and is very clear about our criminal investigation methods. If he really is the murderer, he would have been fully prepared for today's questioning." If he really is the murderer, it would better explain why the murderer's anti-investigation awareness is so strong. Jack Lin said, "Boss, what do we do then? If he really is the murderer, wouldn't he immediately notify Chase to flee once he goes back?" Greg Wong smiled. "If he dares to notify, it would actually help us a lot. Arrange for plainclothes officers to follow Xander Su 24 hours a day immediately and have the technical staff monitor his phone. Also, ask Tencent to provide all his online chat records." Right, he said he rarely chats online with Chase, and there aren't many phone calls either. The last two calls, one was after the He family incident when Chase called him, and the other was after Jasmine Gan's incident when he called Chase. These points all need to be verified. Greg Wong took out a small box from his pocket and handed it to Jack Lin. "This is the recording of the conversation just now. All the information points mentioned by Xander Su, you all need to verify them one by one. If any point differs from the facts, report to me immediately." Jack Lin was about to go and arrange things when George Zhu stopped him, whispering, "Since Xander Su is from the prosecutor's office and naturally understands our investigative methods, be careful with the plainclothes part. There aren't many old detectives in your county bureau, and I'm worried the younger ones might not be skilled enough in tracking. I'll have the old detectives from the city bureau arrange 4 people for this task. Also, Captain Lin, this investigation must be as low-key as possible. All those involved in the investigation must be reminded to keep tight-lipped. We are investigating someone from the prosecutor's office without any formal procedures and investigating his personal privacy. These are unconventional investigative methods." Jack Lin was puzzled. "Do we need to apply for any procedures for this investigation? I've never heard of that." George Zhu said, It depends on the subject of the investigation. Xander Su is a regular civil servant with a rank. Investigating his phone and chat records, even if there are results, the higher-ups won't commend you, but rather be wary of you. Every leader has a private life, which is a taboo and cannot be violated. Such matters are usually only handled by the National Security and the Discipline Inspection Commission, not by the public security. Remember this. Moreover, I heard from Greg Wong that Xander Su is the prospective son-in-law of the chief prosecutor, getting married next year. If this investigation ends up unrelated to him, and others find out we investigated him, it would cause a lot of trouble. So, be extremely cautious with this matter. Soon, Jacqueline came back and said, "Boss, we just received a reply from the Civil Aviation Administration. Chase-Chen indeed returned to the country on October 8th. Greg Wong smiled. Then we can be 100% sure that the person in the photo is Chase-Chen. George Zhu nodded. The next step is how to catch him. Jacqueline said, the Civil Aviation Administration's records also show that Chase-Chen hasn't had any entry or exit records since then, indicating he is still in the country. Greg Wong took a breath. It's been more than 10 days since Vincent Fan was killed. If his goal was achieved, he should have left the country by now. It's very likely he is still in our county, preparing to kill again. Jacqueline said, but recently, the plainclothes officers protecting potential targets have reported, and no suspicious individuals have been found. Greg Wong said, he plans each crime carefully, and after killing Vincent Fan, he must know the incident has caused a big stir and the situation is tense, so he will likely hide for a while. Jacqueline said, so, what do we do now?